bring back the swag? Well, the first thing that we can see is that you've got to find the need. There are certain needs in every relationship. There are certain needs with your spouse. You have got to know your needs. Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 15. Catch the foxes for us. Catch these things for us. What does that mean? The little foxes that are ruining the vineyards while our vineyards are in blossom. The young lady is telling the man, catch these things because they're ruining my life. They're ruining this life. They're ruining the things that should be blossoming in our life. And just for the little disclaimer, for some of you guys know the heart of the Song of Solomon. We're not going to get into any like intimate detail today, by the way. For those of you that really respect and love the Song of Solomon in your marriage, just know that today it is the most G-rated Song of Solomon message you're ever probably going to get, and still true to what this verse is talking about. When two lovers approach one another, when two spouses approach one another, it is not likely that other things should be thought about, right? When you have one person that loves another, when you have that epic movie ending moment in your life, and you're just rushing the green fields to embrace one another, which, never really happens, but that's what Hollywood perverts it out to be. When you have that moment where you and your spouse, you and that one that you love with all your heart, is there at that moment. Do you have other people in your head? Do you have other items in your head? Most often not. You have them in your sights. Focus. That is who you want to concentrate on. That is who you want to focus on. But here, what we see here, these people are saying, look, there are these foxes, these little foxes, they're distracting us, they're taking away, they're doing these things to ruin our vineyards, to ruin these blossoms. They're distracting us. At this moment where these two lovers are coming together, here in the story of the Song of Solomon, we see that this female is saying, look, there is this distraction. They're coming together, and so it testifies to us, when they're coming together as lovers, what we see is that because she mentions this other thing, it's not just this little thing, oh, I got to do tomorrow. It's something that's detrimental to their relationship. And that is why they're focusing, because as we come together, there's these other things that are trying to distract. They are going to keep us from completely coming together. Immoralities exist within everybody. Immoralities do. Immoralities from other people can affect your marriage. These foxes, these little foxes, are not the lover and the spouse. They're not these people. They're outside people. They're outsiders of the marriage. Immoralities from people outside can affect your marriage because they're so perverse, perverted. They will attack. They will see a need and go after it. We see in 1 Corinthians 7, 1 through 2, it says, now concerning the things about which you wrote, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. Verse 2, but because of immoralities, each man is to have his own wife, and each woman to have her own husband. Keep a footnote, a finger, a bookmark or something on 1 Corinthians 7, and we'll come back to that. And if you as a married couple have never read that chapter, shame on you. Well, not really shame on you. Here it is. Welcome, congratulations. There's my Christmas present for you. But because of immoralities, each man should have his own wife. And obviously the opposite is true. Each woman should have her own husband. Because of immoralities. Because it would keep you from straying as someone single. It's best to have this, but understanding this, there are other people with immoralities that will come into attack. And when you offer in like a message series like Married with Children, when you offer in like, children into the picture, they're not distractions, but they definitely keep your mind focused on other issues outside of marriage. And before you know it, we start focusing on our children and not our marriage. We start focusing on issues of parenting and not issues of intimacy. We forget the boat. We forget the core, the central, the pinnacle of this family is this marriage. We miss the boat. Some people have even told me, well, my children are first in my life. When you are living in sin, you are wrong. Because if you and your spouse have a hard day, have a breakup, have something that rips you, it affects your children. It affects your family. Your marriage is the foundation for your family. we see here the word little removes any sense that maybe the foxes are any significant threat. I like how they throw in, you've got foxes, but then you've got little foxes. Trying to suggest, it's no big deal. They're insignificant. It's no problem. They're little bitty foxes. We can just shoot them away and they'll just go away. But isn't that how problems are in marriage? We see them as really insignificant at first. It's no big deal. It'll go away. I'm letting you know, but it's no big deal. And in all reality, the little foxes are the one that gets us. Not the big ones. Not the ones that we know are wrong. Not the ones that are obviously apparent. The little bitty things. You can't build a mountain just in one scoop. It takes many pebbles, many rocks, many grains of dirt to build the mountain. And in marriage counseling, most often what I'm forced to help folks go through is they talk about their problems being a big mountain underneath a rug that they've hidden for a while. You can't just undo the rug and just sweep everything away. You have to, one rock at a time, detail every single thing. Put it back in its place. Get rid of it. Sometimes marriage healing takes just as long as marriage destruction. We want to get over it just like that, don't we? Oh, you found me out. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's get over it. In the ancient world, foxes were notorious for stealing grapes from vineyards. These animals were so good and known to dig around grapevines and to eat the tender shoots and blossoms that were there. They were very good about causing plants to die and preventing them from bearing any kind of fruit. I like how the illustration of foxes are being used in this context. People in this day knew when you talked about foxes, this is what you're talking about. They kill fruit. How often in our marriage is our fruit killed or destroyed? Is our ministry completely taken out because we've allowed something else to come in? But that's what they do. Like, no, they're innocent. They're little bitty foxes. They can't do that. They do. Even the smaller ones do it better because they can hide from those that are tending the vineyards a lot better. They can get down to the tender root quicker because often they're younger foxes. These animals are known to eat the shoots and blossoms, to devour on one the individuals. Devour. They don't even know what's happening. Martin Luther points out that there are two classes of foxes. You've got foxes and you've got little foxes. Now, he pointed that to the government and the Pope. In Luther's context, it made him feel a lot better, I'm sure, but you have foxes and you've got little foxes. You've got these big foxes that are these big, obvious, things that we ought not do in our relationship. But then you've got these little bitty foxes that we're like, they're acceptable, aren't they? They're okay when they're really not. Big foxes are what? Name a few big foxes on your piece of paper. Write down a few big foxes. A few big foxes. Going out partying late hours of the night when you've got to get up to work to supply for your family. That's a pretty big fox. We all know that's wrong, yet some folks do it. Pornography. That's bad. That's awful. That's evil. Shouldn't be doing that. An affair. An adulterous affair. That's wrong. That's big. What's a little fox? What's a little fox?
The dishes.
The dishes. That sounds personal. Little foxes. Literally could be a chore that's unmet that was previously agreed on. It could be a time that was just forgotten. Hey, we're going to be doing this, and it's just something little shade off. Just little bitty things that aren't focused on. There's a need to chase after one another. It says here, catch the foxes, chase them, catch them. Little foxes are ruining our vineyards while the vineyards are in bloom. There's a need to chase after one another. The foxes really see this as a game. Foxes are known in the wild to be playful animals. And they see at times these things as a game. And the foxes that are in the lives that we are trying to have, the foxes that attack, most often do they see this as a game. Those that are unattainable are the ones that are most desired. And So they treat it as a game when it's no game for you or I. Because it's our life. It's our foundation. But yet the moment that we treat our relationship as a game, it's the moment the fox wins. Because then we've entered into their arena. There's this need that people have. Hopefully you're able to identify some needs of your spouse, your fiancé. There's some needs that all of us have. Santa Claus had a need. One time, with all the reindeer, there was a need that he had. Because it was so snowy outside, it was stormy, he couldn't see. So he had this one reindeer. The big red nose. Thanks for the illustration, Steph. He was able to see the way through the darkness. But the need wasn't necessarily met. You know why? There's a problem. It was kind of an issue. Santa had a need. But most of us don't realize that male reindeer typically shed their antlers between November and December. So whatever child story that we were raised up on, Donner, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, whatever the names are, Rudolph, Rudy, and all that, they had antlers during November and December. These reindeer were women. All of these reindeer were women. This explains why Santa was having such a hard time, because he was surrounded by a bunch of women. Hey, poor guy. You cannot be around a bunch of women, Brookhaven, and be able to survive. Stick with one. Stick with one. Santa had a need. How do you bring the swag back? Well, first, you got to find the need. Second, you got to identify the catch. What are you fishing for in life? When you go fishing, you can't just throw anything on the line and throw it out. You've got to know what's particular to the fish that you are trying to catch. Unless you're Clint Wells and you throw out a bass bait and you catch a catfish. Some kind of wild backwoods Kentucky kind of fishing trip that I've experienced. It says here in Song of Solomon chapter 2 verse 15, catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that are ruining the vineyards while our vineyards are in blossom. Catch them, identify them. The spouse ought to catch the things that are hindering the relationship. Catch them. Don't just simply identify, but you as a spouse have got to put your hands around their body, throat. If you deprive your loved one, if you keep from your loved one, if you decide not to fulfill the needs of your loved one, somebody else will. Stereotypically, ladies are built in an emotional capacity more so than men, and have needs emotionally that stereotypically men do not. And so if we are not willing, men, to connect with our wives or our female fiancés in an emotional way, I promise you somebody else will. Men are more physical by nature. And women, if you are not willing to connect with your husband or male fiancé in a physical manner, I promise you somebody else will be available and will hunt for him. It also goes into the thought of how do you feel love? How do you receive love? How do you process this? Men are very, very mental picture oriented. We have cameras inside of our eyes and our head. I don't know if y'all know that. Just everything, we're always the whole time, and we can't help what it bleeds into our mind. That's why the porn industry fights after and calls after men so much. Because when you get something like that in your head, it takes years and years to detox off of that junk. Years and years. Because you still have that in your head. But thankfully, our photo album isn't so large. It It only contains so many pictures in our head. We're men. And you have to fill that photo album with other pictures. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 3 and 5. I told you we're coming back to it. Here it is. This is the scripture. If you are married, you need to write this on your wall in your bedroom, in your house, wherever it is. Pay homage to it every single day. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 3. The husband must fulfill his duty to his wife, and likewise also the wife for a husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. That means when you get married, ladies, you no longer own your body. You belong. You're the property of a man. Ooh. Yes. Everything you do, wear, act, everything belongs, the decision belongs to your husband. That's politically incorrect, isn't it? We don't really care today because it's biblically true. Everything. Why would a lady want to dress in a way that is not attractive for her husband, but wants to dress in an attractive manner? Are you trying to attract someone else? Who really matters? The husband. Ladies, you don't own your body. But I love how Paul writes this because he doesn't stop there. And likewise, also the husband doesn't have authority over his own body, but the wife does. If you're a husband, you are the property of your wives. She owns you. And I know you've probably heard that before, but she owns you. Your haircut, your style, what you wear, the swag that you've got to develop. She owns you. And if you're not referring back to her encyclopedia of what her swag is, then you have got to ask her, what do I need to look like today? Do I need to look like this? Do I need to shave? What do I need to do? You are the one that matters. I don't care what everybody else thinks. I care what you think. She owns you. You know, too many times we don't want to live like that, do we? We want to be, I'm my own, she's her own. Heading to destruction. Verse 5, one of my favorite scriptures. Stop depriving one another except by agreement for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer and come together again, so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. Stop depriving one another. If there's a need that you know of, stop depriving one another. Well, I don't feel like it. I don't care. The Bible has called you to stop depriving one another. If there's a need that your spouse has, you are biblically commanded and mandated to fulfill that need. If you do not fulfill that need, I promise you, a little fox will come along and try to fulfill it for you. You know what the most selfish thing that we hear in marriage is? I don't feel like it. I don't want to do that. Selfish. That's when the marriage no longer is just one flesh. You turn to yourself and it's all about me. It's all what I want to do. When's the last time that we served our spouse like Christ served the church, men? That's a big service, right? Because Christ died for the church. When's the last time that we as men died for our wives? Ladies, when's the last time you submitted to a man, to a walking dead man? I'm not saying submit to a man that's a tyrant. You submit to a man that dies for you daily. That's how that works. And the Bible always talks about the husband first. Husband dies first, the woman, the wife submits. Now, I don't think there's a step one, step two. But I always find it very interesting that Paul always talks about the husband first, and then the wife. What a blessing we can be to one another. Why is that? Foxes are mischievous. They can do what they want to do. Aristotle considered the fox to be mischievous and crafty. The foxes in your life are mischievous. They're going to do what they're going to do. And they're going to be crafty about it. Foxes also work in pairs. Foxes and jackals both live in pairs. Jackals gather in groups. Foxes most often work together in pairs. You ever heard the phrase wingman? Here's my wingman and that kind of thing? When a fox attacks, I promise you there's another one around somewhere. I feel like I'm talking about Jurassic Park. You know what I'm talking about? You're there, you got the one, and there's always one right here. It's just always. In karate, the most difficult fight that you have is against two, not 4 or 5. Because 4 or 5, you can pit people against one another. If it's 2, one's got on your back, one's got at your front, one's on the side. It's so difficult. It's one of the most difficult fighting scenarios that you can be in. And the devil knows that. 2 foxes around your spouse. Foxes are also plentiful. These foxes were very numerous in Palestine. We see in Judges 15:4, Lamentations 5:18, Psalm 63, Nehemiah 4, and 1 Samuel 13. That foxes were very numerous during this time. Just like in our understanding today, there are innumerable amounts of issues that can occur within a marriage. What does the Bible say? You're her property. She's your property. Stop depriving one another. Very simple stuff. But yet the moment that we don't do that, the moment that we do not identify the catch and catch a hold of it, is a moment that we get drowned under. We have got to be able to identify things. It's very, very important. I decided a couple of months ago that I would identify the best flavor of coffee. Because not from me right now, just to wake you up, I'm drinking coffee like a maniac now, and I love it. My eyes are fluttering and jittering and everything. I think I've got too much coffee in me right now. I can't stop my eyes from flipping, but I love coffee. And so I tried to identify the best flavor coffee. I like a deep, dark French roast. Love it. It's enough to knock your eyeballs sockets if they're not already jittering. You know, that kind of thing. And so when I looked up, you know the most expensive coffee is coffee made from elephant dung?
Oh.
Do you know that?
Yes.
They eat coffee or whatever it is, and then there's dung, and then you fish from the dung coffee beans. My question was, who found that out? And how did you find that out? Were you at the point where I was and your eyes are jittering? I'm like, I gotta have a stronger roast, I gotta have a stronger roast. There's poo! That could be stronger. It's got all kinds of different things. How do you find that out? You have got to identify the need if you're going to solve your caffeine problem or your marriage problem. Identify the catch. How do we bring the swag back? Proclaim ownership. We've already started talking about this. Take ownership of the vineyard. You've got a vineyard. What is this vineyard talking about? This vineyard that we see in other scriptures, this Hebrew word for vineyard in chapter 1, verses 5 through 6 in the Song of Songs, and in chapter 8, verses 11 through 12, is talking about the chore of the complexion that the person had, this outer beauty. Take ownership of this beauty. Take ownership and cherish and guard, lest it be ravaged. Because this outer beauty, whatever it is, can attract other things. Catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that are ruining the vineyards, while our vineyards are in blossom. It's maybe at the heart of all marriages. Why a spouse is unable to join with the other. The Shunammite woman here is giving a reason why she cannot immediately join her beloved. Why she cannot immediately be a part of this, because the foxes and the little foxes are distracted. Why do we have problems in our marriage? Because we've allowed the foxes to run around so long, they just seem to be normal decor for the marriage. And we don't realize that these little bitty things are keeping us from completely joining with one another and being the marriage, the couple, the team that God has designed for us to be. And then we end up hating marriage. And then we end up not wanting it. Then we end up wanting to do something different because we never really gave our all and experienced full, complete marriage. Did you notice also the first word in Song of Solomon 2:15? It says catch. It didn't say kill. No, that goes against all kind of redneck principle in my head. I have mapped out ways in my mind. And it goes against all of that. These foxes are called little. They're to be caught rather than killed. Our marriage is supposed to emulate Christ and God. When we're attacked, is it our chance to attack back? Is it our opportunity to see a need in somebody else and to emulate Christ back? Catch the problem, catch the perpetrator, catch the fox. Not kill, catch. Because obviously the reason why there's a fox is because the fox does not know Christ, does not know Jesus. If all we do is shoo it away, it'll be a fox in somebody else's life. We kill it. Well, there are all kind of wrongs with that. What an opportunity in our marriage to emulate. This was wrong. And let me and my spouse show you what is right. Takes marriage to a whole different level, doesn't it? That's what we see in the Song of Songs. That's what we see here in the Song of Solomon. Along with a lot of very intimate details about other things in the Song of Solomon, which maybe we may speak about. What were those needs of your spouse? Look at them again. Or try to remember them or type them up. Find the need, identify the catch, and proclaim ownership.